Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode. Wherever in the world you're listening, whatever platform you're listening to us on, as always, thank you so much for the support. And of course, thank you for sharing the show to others. Really appreciate you supporting the show in that way as well. Today's topic is one that is going to be very topical and one that I think a lot of coaches are either looking to implement or are currently implementing on the offensive side of the ball. And I feel like there's been a very big focus recently on the concept of spacing and maintaining offensive spacing within your offense, getting the best looks that you can, maintaining the space on the floor so that you can develop whatever action it is you're trying to develop on the floor. And so today what we're going to get into is the concept of maintaining offensive spacing. What does it look like in our guest's offense? How does it get taught? What's the philosophy on using that spacing to break down different defenses? We're going to really kind of dive into some different concepts here today, and I think you guys will get a lot out of it. My guest today to help share their insight on this topic is the head boys basketball coach at Greenfield Central High School. I'm very happy to be joined today by Coach Luke Meredith. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Hey, good. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm glad to have you on to talk about this. Love talking hoops and love talking offense too. So I'm looking forward to this one for sure. Coach, let's go ahead and get started with your basketball and coaching journey. Where has the game taken you? Where's your coaching journey taken you? And what ended up eventually getting you to Greenfield Central?
Right. Well, I started off, I graduated college from Ball State University, and I played high school ball, and I really was on the just kind of by happen chance. I saw they had the girls basketball team were playing with guys, and they had a tryout, and I ended up making the team. And basically we were the scout team for all teams in the MAC conference when I was at Ball State from 01 to 05. And really, I mean, if Kent State ran flex or Miami of Ohio was running whatever, we would watch a lot of film and we would try to replicate that. And so that really fueled me to want to be a coach, among other things. So then after I graduated, I took a job at Ben Davis High School, which is on the west side of Indianapolis. And then just kind of worked my way up. I've been everything. I've been a 7th grade, 8th grade, freshman head coach, volunteer assistant, JV head coach, varsity assistant. And now this is my 3rd year at Greenfield Central. So I do feel like I've been and had a lot of experience in all facets of the program. And so I'm excited to be leading the helm here as the head boys basketball coach at Greenfield Central.
I wanted to ask before I even got into my first question, what have you sort of learned? I know it's kind of a loaded question. There's so many different ways you can take that, but how has your current philosophy as a head coach kind of been shaped by all the different positions that you've held? Like you said, you've kind of like done everything. So as you think about you currently as a head coach, what are some things that you were able to see or experience by being in those other positions that have kind of helped you where you're at right now?
Right. Well, I mean, I just think leading a program of your own, it's incredibly beneficial to understand that you can tell your 7th grade coach, your junior high, your freshman coach, like, hey, I've been here. And so I think that's important so you can empathize and put yourself in their shoes. But more importantly for me, I was able to take something away from every position. Like, when I was a freshman coach, you think you know it all. You're fresh out of college, and then that is running a mini program of your own without the pressure. And then when I was the JV coach, I was introduced into more film and more hey, this is what we want to try to do to get the varsity prepared. But then when I was a varsity assistant coach, it was more me being an offensive coordinator and let somebody else run in the defense, and then figuring out how are all facets of a program directly related, and learning from, I was able to work and be blessed to work for Jason Young and Jeff Holloway and a lot of great coaches in the state of Indiana, and just really experience in all facets of all parts of a program that you don't know what you don't know at times. And then just being able to figure it out without being on the hot seat. So I think that there's a piece to, the trial and being put in there right away as a young coach, but then there's also a piece of being able to learn and grow and develop so that when you are there, you're more prepared.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about, thinking about coaching at like the younger levels, freshman level or JV level. Like you're in those situations when you're in tight games and you're close games and you're coaching as if you normally would be coaching. But at the end of the day, win or lose, it is what it is. And there's not that much pressure. If you lost, okay, it is what it is. If you won, great. But people are going to be paying attention to the varsity game. So it's like you said, you kind of get all those experiences, but not really in the most pressure environment. And you kind of get to learn from the mistakes about, like you said, kind of feeling like you're on the hot seat.
No, absolutely. And I do think there's a point of just being a coach. Like a lot of guys can be really good assistants. And then they always say, you move 6 inches to the right, it's a game changer. So I think the more experience that you can garner, whether it be through AAU or the summer or more experiences that your head coach would give you as an assistant, it's gonna really help out later.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. Before we get into this topic, I'm always a big fan of coaches whose programs either have mantras or slogans, or the coaches themselves have their own mantras or slogans that they adhere to. And you're no different. Looking at your Twitter, I can see that you have in all big capital letters this slogan, "Bring the juice." Coach, I want to know what that means. What does it mean to you? Is it a personal thing? Is it a program philosophy? What is it?
Right. Bring the juice is just energy and effort in everything that you do. I kind of stole and coined that term from PJ Fleck, the football coach at Minnesota. And he says, if you're juiceless, you're useless. If you're juiceful, you're useful. So, I mean, when I got this job, once again, I do think that running a program is kind of like running a small business, and you got to get people on board with the same viewpoints. And that's part of building that culture. And I always say that, culture eats strategy for breakfast, but with our guys, we got juice plastered everywhere. It's in our locker room. It's on the back of our shooting shirts. We talk about all the time, bring the juice, and they just know that, I mean, you got to bring it. So I always talk about how, I'm a big enthusiasm guy. Last 4 letters of enthusiasm, IASM. I am sold myself. So I am sold myself on what I can do for my school, for my program, for my community, for my basketball players, for my staff. And that in a nutshell is just bringing the juice.
Yeah, I like that. That's actually a really good phrase about the whole useless and useful thing. I've never actually heard of that before. And like you said, you stole it from someone. I might just steal that from you. So it might live on through me now. That's
No,
really cool. I
absolutely.
like
Go right ahead. Our
that.
kids really like it. And, you'll hear opposing student sections talk about juice, or if we lose, they'll put something funny, but it's really become synonymous with our program, and it just fits who we are.
Yeah, no, that's fun. I think that's awesome. All righty, coach, let's get into our topic today about maintaining offensive spacing. Let's kind of start in the broad sense so that we can kind of set the stage here. What is offensive spacing mean to you in terms of what you like to run on offense? What are you looking to run on offense, and how important is offensive spacing in order to have that offense run successfully?
Right. Well, I mean, I like to think of myself. Some guys are offensive minded, defensive minded, whatnot. I am 100% offensive minded, but we tell our guys all the time, offensive spacing and spacing is offense. So we don't have a bunch of 6, 7 dudes that we're going to run some Kansas high-low. We run, I call them play families, which I kind of stole from Musselman at Arkansas, but he does play families, and we do the same thing. We run some chin, which is just kind of our own altered version of the Princeton. We run some point or some rub series, and then we run some European or just some regular ball screen actions. But the spacing part, we always talk once again with our kids that we're trying to get PT and DW3. So PTs paint touches, and DW3s are driveway threes. So in order, our shot selection, we're trying to get layups, free throws, and driveway threes. So in order to do that, you got to have spacing. We play a myriad of teams in our conference on our schedule that, whether it be pack line D, whether it be their run and jump, whatever it is. But I do think that if you can space teams out and you can get your playmakers to be able to make plays in space, that's what every coach is trying to do, whether it be through a set, whether it be through your motion, but offensive spacing, and spacing is offense. It's the most important thing.
And so, as you kind of mentioned, a lot of teams, like you said, they're running the run and jump, or they're running the pack line. They're trying to do something to be at least a little bit disruptive, and to try to set the tone that they're trying to get on defense. So in that terms of that little chess match, how do you feel that you as a coach are able to kind of assert your will of what you want to make sure you want to run on offense versus the defense asserting its will against you with running what they want to do?
Right. Well, I mean, it's that chess match against coaches, and you're trying to read, are they switching? Are they hard hedging the ball screens? And that's going to dictate kind of how you call the game. But I do think that when you have something in place, kind of like what we do, first of all, we start off with secondary spots. So on made buckets, we got to have an inbounder, a point guard, fly left, fly right, and a rim runner. And that rim runner ultimately rises up to the nail. And we'll run stuff out of secondary where if he passes, these are automatics. He passes fly right, we do this. He passes to the trailer, we run the Carolina back screen. We pass to the post, we do that. So I do think that having automatics, which you are joysticking, you're trying to get your best players to be in position to be successful. But, our spacing starts with our secondary. And in this Chin family, we're already in 2 seams, 2 wings, and a guy in the high post. And every position is interchangeable except for the 5-man, the rim runner who's at the nail. But that all starts out of, hey, when guys are subbed in, you're guarding 33 or you're in the high point of the zone defensively, and then I am fly left. So we are automatically in those spots and spacing wise so that we are all on the same page and we know what we're going to be doing and what we can do. So if secondary doesn't work, obviously we get into some motion where I can call a quick hitter, but it's just like anything else. It's going to have the same look, but we may get into our motion, which is our chin piston. We may get into some kind of quick hitter out of that same look.
And kind of peeling back the layers of this a little bit for a player who is just coming into your program, whether it's a freshman or, somebody's coming new into your program, how do they get kind of brought into the system? How does that kind of get built up to them in terms of the teaching aspects where they're learning what they need to learn and then sort of building up to whatever the finished product that you want them to get to by their senior year?
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's just like the classroom, every kid learns differently.
Sure.
We actually just had a transfer and a move in here. And so here this fall, I use Fast Draw. So I'm able to print off and show him, hey, these are the sets that we run. Just a quick and dirty version of where we are. Also use Huddle. So we utilize that. And then I'll be able to send him film from last year and be able to send him certain clips of things we do. And then, some pack line coaches, they get out the masking tape or the paint tape, the blue tape, and they put it out there in the middle for this to help support line. Well, I do the same thing on offense. I'll put X's in the seams or cones and then at the wing. And this is where we are. And I'm always yelling at them about where we are spacing wise and where we need to be until it becomes second nature and we don't even think about it. We just rise up. I call it reset, rise, and we get to those spots. And that's how we start every possession.
I think that is a really underutilized thing sometimes with coaches. I know I haven't done it nearly as much as I want to, is literally having the tape or having it out there. Like, this is what spacing looks like. This is where you need to be, literally visualize and see it. So you know exactly where you have to get to. And then seems like if you do it that way, there's like no guesswork because this is where you want to be. It's literally marked for you. We can start with this and then, using the teaching terminology, kind of like scaffolding a little bit and then kind of do away with it. And then hopefully by that point, they'll understand exactly where they need to be. But I feel like having that visual has probably helped for those new players, those transfers coming in, literally being able to see it and not have to make any sort of guesswork or assumption as to where they need to get to.
No, absolutely. And the fall is huge. I know we do have a couple of football guys too, but our summer here and our fall here in Indiana allows us to work with our kids. We get 2 hours a day, 2 days a week, and we can do whatever. So we do many practices, and this is just going to be huge as we start November 8th, and then our first game is in 2 weeks. There's no way that these kids can have all that and be ready and prepared.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, the turnaround between tryouts officially and the season starting that first game. Yeah, there's no way you can get something like that in 2 weeks. No, I 100% agree with you. Something I wanted to kind of build on that with some of the looks that you talked about, whether it's the Princeton type offense you're running or some of the different sets or quick hitters that you can run depending on what the defense is throwing at you, is in order for offensive spacing to really be used to its full potential, there's a lot of decision making that needs to be done, and there's got a lot of intelligent offense that needs to be run and a lot of strong decision making that needs to take place. What is the process like, whether it's in practice or however you and your staff go about it, of teaching smart decision making to maximize the looks that you're getting?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things too. Kids got to understand their role, which is a big piece of a coach. Shooter shoot,
Yeah.
passers pass, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's something that you got. It's a buy-in. It's a culture, and it's, hey, this kid's a 40% 3-point shooter. He's a dead eye. We got to get him the rock. So We do spend a lot of time on that. We just talk about, DYJ, do your job. But just little slogans like that and little things, and what we do and what we run, is for our shooters. And you got to have guys that can shoot the ball. That is the great equalizer. If you don't have athletic ability or you don't have size, you got to have guys that can shoot the ball. So we have a Dr. Dish that we just purchased that we've been using the heck out of this fall. We have a shoot away. We get in there when we have our 2 days. We're at school at 7 a.m. in the mornings, and then we're after school with our regular practices. But I do put a huge emphasis on shooting because I think that is the great equalizer. So for us, you want to talk about spacing. Defensively, we talk about closeouts, and we correlate those closeouts to an NBA player. Is he a Rondo closeout that can't shoot? Is he a Kobe closeout that can do both, or is he a Clay closeout that doesn't like to put it on the rack, on the floor? He just likes to shoot it. So if you have too many Rondos, it's very tough to have spacing because they can just sit back. So that's one thing we put a huge point of emphasis in the off season, is just being able to shoot the ball.
Yeah, easiest way to space the floor out too is if there's shooters that the other team's got to close out on, then one of the easiest ways to spread out a defense and get them to overextend is to have people to shoot. But like you said, if they don't respect it, what's the point, right? They're just going to pack it in, and you can shoot all you want, and it won't matter to them, and it takes away almost half of what you're trying to do on offense, especially trying to get any sort of like dribble drive action or anything like that. You need players to shoot. And so it sounds like from what you're saying, like players not only have to understand each other's role, but also they have to understand what they can do as well. And when that comes up, are you having conversations with your players by saying like, hey, this is what your role is and this is what you need to be doing on the floor? Is that something that's kind of like understood? Is that something that the whole team is well aware of? Explicitly, how do players kind of understand what their role is?
Oh, absolutely. I have no problems calling a kid out. That's a bad shot. We don't like contested twos. That's something that I don't care who you are. We don't want contested twos. We certainly want driveway threes, but we want the kids that we know that can make them to be driveway threes. We do a drill called 3-minute threes. We have a permanent passer, permanent shooter, permanent rebounder. We have 3 minutes on the clock, and you should be at 40 plus. If you're a 40 plus, you're a green light guy. If you're under that, then you are not a green light guy. So I think when we put the point of emphasis and we do that every single day in practice, then the kids figure it out, and the kids figure it out quickly. But we also talk about, you can't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. So we have a lot of kids that might not be able to shoot it. But like we talked about before, knowing your role, they can rebound, they can attack, they're athletic, so they can do things to help us too. But having good shots is incredibly important for every offense. And if you have too many kids that are taking bad shots, a kid takes a bad shot, that's on them. The kid continues to take that bad shot, it's on the coach. You got to pull them, you got to make them learn, because that's the same as a turnover.
Yeah, bad shot, same thing as a turnover. I use that phrase myself. I like it. Paint touches, you mentioned the importance of those, Coach. Can you talk about the role that getting the ball in the paint serves overall in your offense, and how it's kind of worked in the offense? Is there a lot of looks that come when the ball touches the paint? Is there a lot of kickouts from the paint? What role is paint touches kind of served within your offense over the years?
Yeah, I think paint touches, and we also talk about getting fouled, and you get fouled in the paint. You want to get to the line. You want their best players to be in foul trouble or on the bench. So I think that's incredibly important. We talk about 2 feet in the paint, playing off of 2 feet, like toughness, those types of things that we drill and we talk about daily. And as a part of our offense in our chin, we're really just trying to empty out one side of the floor, get a ball handler coming off a ball screen, and get a shooter in the corner. So that's the spacing that we're trying to get. And you got to get in the paint and get downhill in order to make that guy make a decision. Like we talked about, if you got a Clay or somebody that can shoot it in the corner, and your man gets screened, he's either going to get downhill and finish, or you're going to have to help, and we're going to jump, stop, and kick for a driveway three. So paint touches are one of, if not the most important thing in any offensive identity that I want.
Is that something that you or your staff either look at or like measure? Is there like a certain number? Do you just kind of have like a feel as to, at the end of the game, did we get enough paint touches or not?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that I have done in the past. Like per quarter, we want to have so many paint touches and have an assistant chart that. But really, one thing that I think the kids got to see it, man. I'm telling you, huddle is phenomenal when they break the game down for you and you're able to clip it. And I'll just put on there on the notes PTDW, and I'll show it, hey, we need to have more of these, and the more the kids see it and we rep it and we do it, 3-on-0, little simple things, attack and kick, then we go 3-on-3, then we add in the 5-on-5, and we show it to them on film and they see that it works. And I think that's important. But yeah, I think film is a big thing of showing them this is what we're looking for and this is how you get it.
Yeah, it doesn't lie. You really can't argue back against film, right?
No, absolutely. Film don't lie, for sure. Good
Yeah.
and bad.
Yeah, good and bad. No, film for sure doesn't lie. It'll expose everything. Hopefully more good than bad, but it'll definitely expose the truths for sure. No question about that. I think that as I mentioned about decision making, one of the things with offensive spacing, I know that even in the past I've struggled with, and I know other coaches have as well, is sometimes the level of patience that's required, especially if you're looking to break down a defense and get them off whatever they're doing and trying to break them down after defense has to rotate so many times, depending on what defense that they are throwing at you. Is patience something that is emphasized? Are there certain like looks that are like automatic? We kind of talked about the shooters, like even if it's 2 seconds in, if you see this, you're going for it. Or what's the philosophy behind how much you want to work through in your set to try and get the look that you want? Or is it, hey, if we see this right away, we're going to go for it? Doesn't matter if it's like 2 seconds of taken off the clock sort of thing.
Right. Well, I mean, I have to tell our kids all the time there is no shot clock at Indiana high school basketball because we are so daggone. I mean, we had a quick trigger. But same as every other coach, they want it to get it to that third side. If we can't do it and we get into chin and it's not a quick hitter. Now, if it's a quick hitter, once again, I'm trying to joystick to get our best player in the best position, whether he's a shooter, driver, passer, whatever, the best decision maker. But if we're in our normal chin, sometimes I'll have to call chin 10, chin 8, and we got to have 8 passes. In practice with the JV face guarding us, or I've even implemented into a game where we got to have 10 passes before we even shoot. And that's just something that to try to get our kids. I'm not a stall ball guy. I'm not a, we want to hold the ball, but I still want to get great shots. And if you're not able to hold your kids accountable and you're not able to get them to do that and buy in, then it's never going to be successful.
It's one of those things that I know sometimes you just have to explicitly like teach that though and say like how many passes that you need to get and get the ball moving. I've been in positions before, and I'm sure you have, where the ball just gets stuck. And that just drives me crazy if the ball just feels like it's stuck in one person's hands for too long, or they're over dribbling. And like you said, like that sometimes has to be emphasized. We need a certain amount of passes, otherwise that defense isn't going anywhere and they're not moving anywhere. And with that, I'll just ask as like a follow-up question: is passing one of those things that even needs any refinement or any teaching? Is that something that there's any points of emphasis that you have with passing, or is that something that you haven't really had to do a lot of refinement with over the years?
Right. Well, one big, you made me think of this, but we talk a lot about movement equals mistakes. And so obviously the more you get the defense to move, regardless of whether they're switching or they're straight up, but just movement equals mistakes. One thing that I've noticed, and I don't understand why this is an issue, but a lot of kids can't pass with both hands. And so we, when we're coming off, we'll rip through. I always talk about, pass with the left hand on that side, pass with the right hand on that side. So everybody puts a point of emphasis about that on, layups and whatnot, but nobody really messes with that. And we put a big point of emphasis on passing with your correct hand, getting stronger with that hand, and then snapping your passes. And you want to be able to catch it, we talk about bad passes. We talk about, you want to get it in that shooter's pocket. And if it's not in the shooter's pocket, it's a bad pass, regardless of whether he's open or not. You should be able to step into it. So I think, the biggest thing I want for the kids to take away from, when I'm watching a kid and he's right-handed, but he comes off and snaps a pass with his left hand, he gets it right in that shooter's pocket, my eyes light up. That gets me excited.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that about the way that people pass, because I had a coach who I was talking to. Even he brought that up to me once about a point of emphasis that he had about, we talk a lot about forcing a ball handler to their weak hand, but he brought up a whole concept about forcing passes on the weak hand, and how, like you mentioned, a lot of players can't pass with both hands, and so a player will pass on their weak side, and there's a lot of turnovers and a lot of things that can come out of that. And it's just such an interesting concept that you mentioned that I just feel is either just not taught, or maybe just coaches, just a lot of them don't think about it. I know I didn't really think about it till he had brought it up.
Right. No, it seems simple, but it's something that, kids, it's a fundamental skill that has kind of been lost. And when you do bring it to their attention, then they start doing it. But it's, hey, we're going to do this drill, and this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And if you don't, I'm going to stop you, much like a coach would stop you if you shoot a right-handed layup on the left side.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good point. A lot of these things, players I know as a coach, I thought that players knew or they understood, but I realized that somebody had to teach it to me when I was playing. So they got to learn it from me as well. And so, you learn those things throughout the years and pick those things up for sure. With the concept of patience and with the concept of, making the right decisions, obviously comes communication and being able to communicate and make sure that the players are communicating, you're communicating, and making sure that you're getting the best looks you can with the best spacing that you have available. How is communication kind of taught to your players on the offensive end so that they're working together, using their spacing the best they can to get the best looks possible?
Right. So I use an index card for me, just because, like I said, I have these play families, and I may have, 40 sets by the time we get to March that we run. And so once again, I sometimes let the point guard, we got a junior point guard that's pretty solid. Maybe D1, he's going to have some NAIA looks and some D2 looks, but I trust him a lot. And so if it's a sense and a feel thing and he's like, hey, I like this, I'll let him call it. But for the most part, I like to call the game, and I let my assistants do the subs. I have a defensive coordinator, and I have a special teams coordinator that does baseline out of bounds, side out of bounds. So for me, my job is to call the game and to call the offense. So for me, I'm thinking even when they're on defense, what do I like offensively based on how I think they're going to guard us or what matchup I like. So for me, you talk about spacing, you talk about calling a game, looking on my index card, trying to figure out what we do. Now, we do have some things that are automatics. If the defense takes this away, then we do this. But a lot of what we do, for me to be able to get our players, like you talked about, the best players in position to be successful, is calling a set. And if that set doesn't work, then we automatically get into that spacing, reset, rise, and get into chin or our point series or our ball screen continuity.
Is that something that you've always kind of had as a part of your coaching? You talk about a little bit about the index card. Is that something that you kind of developed over the years? What kind of brought that about?
Well, when I became a varsity assistant, I was running the offense. I ran the offense for the entire program, and the head coach, Jason Young, allowed me to do that without questions asked. Never questioned me whether we averaged, 30 points a game or 80 points a game. And so that allowed me to grow and develop. And I just always just kept this index card, and I'll add to it as we go along. And then on the back of the index card, I do my, okay, down to baseline out of bounds. This is what I'm doing. Need one. This is what I like. This is what I've seen on film here to remind me. I'll put little stuff on there, TGHT, the game honors toughness, or like you talked about with the juice or whatever on the back. But the index card has just kind of been something that's always in my pocket. I always have a pin in my ear. It's just my niche. And it's just something that has grown as the years have progressed. And I don't think I would want to have a game without it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Now it's been a minute, but from one of my understandings about Chin in particular and tenets of Princeton offense is cutting. And I know that I've seen some really good coaches who've used Princeton and use different chin sets, get a lot of backdoor looks and a lot of cuts in general and a lot of backdoor layups and things of that nature. Is cutting something that is really emphasized within your offense in terms of getting that spacing?
Yes and no. We get a lot actually out of the ball screen action. So if we enter it to a wing, we have what is called a shuffle cut, or you could even make it a 45 cut. That guy we're trying to get once a quarter. And so basically when we get it to the wing and the nail is setting a back screen, if the guy guarding the nail has to bump, which is what we're trying to get, then he can't get there to hedge. So when they reverse it back to the point guard and he gets downhill, that is basically what we're trying to get. Now, we're not the old school Princeton where it is a lot of backdoors and reads. I'm still joysticking kids. And we get into some up screen, down screen action too. I've really kind of fallen in love. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Chris Dorsey. He's an excellent follow on Twitter. He runs some point series, which is just, a lot of great action where you enter it into the elbow. Richmond Spiders run the same action, but I've kind of delved deep into that. And that's something that has really piqued my interest. So if you get an opportunity, follow Chris Dorsey and watch some of the Richmond Spiders and stuff that they do. But it's kind of a hodgepodge of old school chin kind of things that I've picked up. And then now this new point series is something that I'm going to be running a lot here this upcoming season.
And to follow up with one of the points that you mentioned, every coach goes about it differently. So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot about setting a good screen. What goes into setting a good screen for you?
Right. We just talk about shoulders and feet square. And if you get called for a moving screen, I am not mad about that. Let me handle that. But you got to make contact. We always talk about screen the man, not the spot. That seems to be a big issue with a lot of kids. Not wanting to make contact, but screening is tough. Screening is one of those things that it is under taught, but it's an important thing. We'll do a box drill where we have 2 guys on the elbow, 2 guys on the block, and they just will have to down screen, and they have to make 10 ball reversals, and the other guys are just trying to take it away. Just simple stuff to get them to understand that screening is important and know how to screen.
I think something that I've kind of found or maybe just kind of picked up on when it comes to about screening, and like you mentioned, like how it's under taught, is I feel like there's almost a sense of like every coach kind of assumes that a player knows what a pick and a screen is. And then like the next year, that new coach just assumes that they kind of know what it is. And I feel like there's a lot of assumptions made because maybe it is such a basic thing of terminology that maybe we just make some assumptions that our players know what it is, and then we see them do it and like, wait a minute, that doesn't look right at all. And then you mentioned like, things like this got to actually be explicitly taught. And if it is an important part of your offense, something that actually has to be emphasized and even spend some time on in practice, no matter how mundane it may seem.
Right. And I just think it's the simple nuances, like sprint to the screen so that guy is late getting there.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, little things that the kids, okay, that makes sense. This is why, it gets back to the why are we doing this? Or the point guard waiting on the screen and setting your guy up. And those are the simple things. So understanding and breaking down, okay, this is what we want on a ball screen. This is what we want on a flare screen. If they switch, we do this. If they are red and trapping, we do that. This is a down screen. This is how you read it when you curl it and when you want to do that. So I really do try to take the time and explain that, but it's something that the kids, they don't know what they don't know. And you assume, like you said, that they do know and they just don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's just something good for coaches to be aware of, is that they may understand what the term means, but that doesn't mean that they know the way that even you want it to be done or what it means to you. And being aware of that, I think, can save you as a coach a lot of frustration when you understand that their understanding of a concept or of idea, that they might understand what the words mean, but they might not understand what it means to you or what you want out of it. And so having it taught the way you want it to be taught will clear up all that confusion for them, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the things I always find really interesting, this goes with the idea of maintaining the offensive spacing that you like with the different sets and the different looks that you try to like, or like you talked about kind of joysticking it, is how to authentically practice that in an environment where the players are getting the exposure that they need and the decision-making practice that they need. So I'm really curious about how that gets worked on in your practice plans. How do you authentically kind of replicate and practice the different sets that you want them to run, while also having defensively giving them a bit of the challenge and giving them a bit of a I guess challenge is the best word, so that it's like being authentically replicated what they might see during a game?
Right. Well, my favorite drill, and my JV players hate it, it's called ping pong.
It's a good drill if they hate it.
Yeah, you have all-time defense on each side, so there's no transition, and they have to get in their spacing every single time. And what I like about it is I'll let a coach on each side coach those 5 players on defense, and they could be in a 1-3-1, a 2-3, a 3-2, or if we're just focused on man, they could be, trapping, they could be switching, they could be doing whatever. And our kids got to be able to read it on the fly, so it's more game-like. We can do it until you get a kill, which is 3 stops in a row. We could do it until we have 3 turnovers. We could do it to a certain score. And then we can flip it and we can run defense, get the top 10 players on varsity. But I just think for our spacing and how much of an emphasis and how many sets our guys have to learn, and then the spacing that I'm looking for and requiring for us to be able to do the things we want to do at the varsity level, ping pong is something I'll put 10 minutes up on the board, and it's nothing but rep after rep after rep. And I think that that's what you need in order to be successful.
with running that ping pong drill, what would you say is the biggest leap that your players make by being forced to have to be in that sort of drill until they get a kill?
Well, the biggest problem that I have is just making sure that the JV players play hard and they
Sure.
compete. So if you don't hang that carrot in front of them, hey, if you get 3 stops in a row, if you get a kill, then you're off. You're done, and then varsity's going to run. If we go for 10 minutes and you don't get a kill, then you're going to run. But we are permanently on offense, and we'll sub guys in, which is another piece of this too. You talk about you're always going to have your 5 starters for the most part, and you're going to feel pretty good about them. And then you put guys 6, 7, 8. Well, let's run Miami, let's run Florida. Okay, well, he doesn't know that spot. So when they're thrown in there as a hockey sub in the middle of ping pong, then they have to be able to run the fly left. They have to be able to get to that spot with no questions asked, and it's game like, which is another big takeaway for a drill like that, of getting the kids to understand, hey, you want to play? Okay, well, you got to know this spot and that spot and this spot, and be able to know all the sets that go in tune with that too. So I think that's a big piece.
Well, I think what that does too is that's a real effective way to try and like teach them all the different spots of what they're going to need to know. It's like a very authentic way rather than having somebody kind of explain it to them. It's almost like, well, here you go. If you're going to be in this position and you're going to have to make it happen and kind of almost learn on the fly and learn in a competitive environment. And there's probably a lot of gains in terms of their just on the court knowledge by being in that sort of position a lot.
Yeah, no, and you talk about, you can get a lot accomplished with 5-on-0. That's fine. That's a piece. You can get accomplished with some cutthroat 5-on-5. You can get a takeaway from, a game, just full court, play to 7. But how many times are they actually going to be in the half court when they're playing, a game to 7? I don't know how many reps they're going to get. This is guaranteed every single time you have a defense waiting for you, and you're guaranteed, hey, this is the spacing, this is where we are, this is what we want, just to teach it. There's no other way to replicate it rather than to get reps.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Before I get to a follow-up question I had, I wanted to kind of clarify the term joysticking that you've brought up a couple times. What does that mean to you? I think I know what it means, but I want to make sure that I get it clarified by you. When you talk about joysticking your offense, what does that mean to you?
Just like when I play 2K with my boy and I want Curry to pull up from the volleyball line, I can do that with the controller. So my term joysticking is just, if I know that I want my point guard to get a shot, I'm going to call this set to make sure that happens, because sometimes that gets lost in motion, or some of the other things that you can run, to where your best players, they haven't had a shot in a quarter, or they're hot, they need one. So that's something that I think that our chin and our spacing can give us, but it's also something that we can get out of a quick hitter too.
And that's kind of in and of itself, you brought up a couple of really good examples, but in and of itself, that's kind of like the internal, I guess, battle, for a lack of a better term, that sometimes coaches go through is, they have their offense that involves a lot of good decision making and a lot of different looks that you can get out of it, versus, as you mentioned, kind of like sometimes you need to like joystick it. You need to make sure that, hey, this is absolutely what we need to be doing within this set right now. How do you kind of go through that as a coach when you're coaching in a game, when it's time to, take the reins, so to speak, and do that joysticking, versus kind of letting things go and letting your players kind of run the offense and getting the looks they think are best?
Right. I mean, I think that's part of the flow of the game, and that's, kind of what makes a coach on game night. But for me personally, it's just like a football coach calling a 2-point conversion. They got a play that they like, and they're going to run it because they have a good feel for what they think is going to happen. So for me, on this index card, I'll have some ones circled that we've run well in practice, or I know that this player likes and is going to excel in. And so I think that's just a part of that preparation, and that's a piece. So if you want to call Philly special and win a Super Bowl, on the basketball court, you got to have your own Philly special and have something ready to go that the players are all really comfortable, and your best player knows that this is his play, or this is his set of plays to get him the ball to be able to make plays and get back into the game.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's like you gotta have those kind of go-tos, or those ones, like you said, kind of what makes a coach is when they can go and know, like, all right, this is what we need, and I know that this is what we need, and be ready to pull that out and kind of make that happen. I think that's I like I like the Super Bowl reference there. That's a good comparison that you made. So this philosophy of maintaining spacing and trying to get the looks that you want. We talked a lot about the chin and some of the other concepts, kind of like the hybrid type Princeton looks that you get. How does your philosophy of using that offensive spacing, how does it break down against whether a team's running man or pack line or zone? Are there certain concepts that are always going to stay the same with your spacing? Are there different tweaks or changes that you're going to throw at based on whether they're in a man or a zone?
Yes. I don't know that I mean, you can. I know that some coaches do. You can run Princeton and chin against a zone, but for me, I don't like it. I've tried it before. I just don't think it's 100% effective. That's one thing that I do like about motion, is that you're always going to be in that same look. But I do think we're chin against man-to-man, and that could be anything. That could be switching, like I said, that could be them trapping, that could be them straight up or pack line. But once we get the zone, I'm more of we run some continuity, but once again, I'm a quick hitter guy. So we'll have a couple quick hitters for a 1-3-1, 3-2, 2-3. But once again, that's going to be predicated on what we've seen on film that season from who we're playing and what we know that they like to do. But, for me, just starting back and getting back over with chin, it's just like, when you play those teams that run baseline out of bounds and they're 4 low, or they run box every single time, it's that same look. And whatever they call, it's a different play out of that same look. Well, it's the same thing with chin. Like, you look at what Michigan has done with Beeline when he was there, or some other coaches that have done that. When you are in our chin, 2 seams, 2 wings, and a guy in the high post, there's just so much that you can do out of it, and it looks the exact same. And it is really hard to scout. It is really hard, even if you know our calls, to be able to be prepared or feel like teams are prepared to play against us.
Yeah, it's always that, like we talked about, like, what is that chess match going to be, and what is, another team going to try to put against you. But I feel like one of the things that I'm kind of getting out of what you like to run and what you like to put on offense is that there's a lot of versatility to it, that whatever a defense likes to run or get into, your offense and your coaching philosophy, the way that you kind of maintain your spacing and the different looks you're trying to get, there's a lot of variety and a lot of versatility to it, that it can be easily tweaked to kind of counter against whatever defense is being thrown against you. Am I kind of right in thinking that?
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. And by the time we get to the end of the year, if we know they're hard hedging ball screens, then we could very easily switch to something where we talked about, that instead of setting that shuffle screen, maybe he doesn't set a shuffle screen. We enter it to the wing and he dives. It's just simple stuff that, okay, they're doing this. Well, now this is that chess match out of a timeout, that we're going to see what kind of look we can get out of it. But yeah, tons of versatility out of chin, tons of things that you can do out of your base motion and that spacing of chin, or quick hitters that you've seen. I know a lot of coaches have run a variety, and it's becoming more and more popular, but ton of things that you can do out of it that has that same look, which makes it hard to guard.
Yeah, 100% agree with that, Coach. For coaches, especially new coaches or young coaches who are looking to kind of take over a program, one of the things they might want to emphasize right away is, like, our program is going to have really great spacing, and we're going to make sure that, the floor is never getting congested on offense, and we're going to have this down. What would you maybe recommend, or maybe tell a coach to be aware of if they're trying to have offensive spacing? Are there things that maybe seem easy on the court on game day, but actually are maybe more difficult concepts to teach for players to understand? What sort of pitfalls do you think a coach might get into if they're looking to jump right in and make sure their offensive spacing is going to be perfect, and they want to have the best offensive spacing there can be?
Right. Well, I mean, first and foremost, we talked about reps. I think repetition is huge in all facets, whether like we talked about 5-on-0, 5-on-5, full court, half court. The kids got to get reps. The breakdown drills are important. You got to be sticklers for, hey, when we're coming off of this drift screen, this is how I want your feet. This is how I want your shoulders. And they got to learn it right early, or they're going to build bad habits, just like a jump shot. I think year 3 of program development is huge, just simply because when you get there, hopefully you're thinking you're going to be there for the long haul, as every coach should. But getting your junior high on board, getting your freshman and JV on board, it's just so much easier when you get kids that have gone through your program. If you say chin, they know it. And they don't have to know every single set that you run, but they should know the basics, and that's got to be the foundation. So I've always said, when I wanted to be a head coach, I want our teams to be known for certain things. I felt like there's a lot of programs in the state of Indiana or in high school in general that, okay, what is Greenfield Central known for? Well, they should be known right now. We're known for juice, we're known for chin, and we run a 3-2 defense. So that's what we're going to continue to be known for, and that's who we are. So I think building an identity is important throughout the course of the program. So if you play our 7th grade team, this November, we're going to run chin. And so that's something that I think is important as we get through year 3 now and year 4 and year 5 as just an identity and a program builder moving forward. Because if you don't have that and you're reteaching those same skills every single year, then the kids will never be able to blossom and develop within that program.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think if you can almost like plant the seed early there, and hopefully even if it's not a fully grown tree, at least it'll be growing by the time it kind of gets to you if they kind of start at the junior high or younger level.
For sure. Focus on the root, not the fruit.
I like that. You just talked actually about like a little bit of like a little detail type thing, and I think that the little things are the big things, especially when it comes to a lot of moving parts and a lot of things happening on offense. Are there certain aspects to whether it's your offense as a whole or even just individual or breakdown concepts, like you said, that may seem like little or insignificant to like the untrained eye, but are like absolute musts or things that need to happen and you continually re-emphasize and re-drill until they're done right? I know you mentioned one earlier. I was curious if there were any others.
No, man. I mean, I'm a creature of habit. So, there are a lot of drills that we do. I want the kids I don't want it to be something where it's Monday, but we do this Monday drill. Then we do breakdown drills, or we'll get into drift shooting. And so by the time we get into the middle of the season and I blow my whistle and I'm yelling drift, this is the station that we do. This is how we do it. It's just a lot of fundamental stuff that we do over and over. But I was always told to be great at what you do a lot. So we try to be great at those things, and we use a lot of repetition. And so I don't really think it's rocket science. We do work hard. I work hard. Our kids work hard, but there's really no great drill that's going to blow your mind if you come to watch a practice. But I do think we do a lot of the things the right way, because I think that on game day they see it. But it's that old quote: the foundation of success occurs when no one else is watching. 3 to 5 Monday through Thursday before we get there Friday, we're working on our feet. We're working on floating. When you get dribbled at, we're on the gun getting 100 makes before you leave the gym. So those are the simple things. There's not one drill. There's a lot of drills that we do to simplify it. But I'm a creature of habit, and I want our kids to build those good habits too.
Well, I think one of the big concepts that I'm kind of getting out of our conversation is just the importance of not letting anything like slide or not letting anything go, and how important it is for your players, whether it's the way they come off a screen or the way they read something, or how many shots they make, or way their feet are set in a particular drill that you're trying to do, or a particular skill that they're working on, that you got to catch those things early, and you got to repeatedly kind of drill and put into habit what you want from them. Otherwise, as you kind of mentioned, those things are going to slide, and all of a sudden you're going to have a bunch of variables and a bunch of things that might end up going wrong, and then it could completely break down your whole offense. At least that's kind of my understanding of the way that you like to run things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, how you do anything is how you do everything. But I definitely think the little things are huge, and I definitely think that's something that's important, and that's something that we should be held accountable for. And that goes back to that spacing. Like, if you're not free throw line extended outside the arc and you're a wing, you're not right. If you're not at the volleyball line where it meets and you're a seam, that's not right. If you don't hustle on and off the court, I mean, that's not gonna work. You're not gonna play. It's not gonna happen. So, and it's just like when I learn someone's name, if I learn it wrong the first time, I call them that the rest of their life. It's really hard for me to change.
Yeah.
So that's why it's always important that we go through these reps and we get it right and we fix it so they don't build that bad habit.
Yeah. And just to kind of build on that before we kind of start to wrap up to our concluding segment and talk about like getting their habits right. And we talk about film doesn't lie. And I know we brought that up earlier. Is watching film something that's required for your program? Do you expect your players to be watching film and watching what's going on and learning things that way? Is that something you go over with them? What's your philosophy on the player's responsibility in terms of film?
Right. And I know that there's some guys, and some football guys specifically, that say, hey, you have to watch 45 minutes of film or you can't play, blah, 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 blah. But for me, I like to watch film because I like to learn about me and our team and our kids. So I basically do it for them and I spoon feed them. So I will create clips. I'll watch every game. I'll scout every game. And then, I try to have 5 good, 5 bad. I try to keep it light, but that normally doesn't happen. But let's say if we get out of school at 3:25, we're on the court normally by 3:45. But I meet with the team. They have their assigned seat. I put everything on the board about, kind of a plan and an organization like a teacher would, the objective of the day. And then we may watch 5 clips or 10 clips at the beginning of practice. And then, just because they have a short attention span, come back at the end of practice and we'll watch clips. Maybe that's of another game, another team, or maybe it's that same game and I'm breaking it down for them. So I do everything for them. I don't ask them to do it because I know some of them won't. And I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So we'll all watch it together and I'll break it down. But I don't have a requirement because most of the kids will watch it, but there will be a lot of kids that don't.
Yeah, it's really interesting kind of topic and a philosophy to kind of have. I'm kind of in the camp of like, I don't know if you're watching film on your own, that you're watching it for what I want you to watch it for. And if I feel like I just need to re-emphasize things that happened on film, I might as well just watch it together at that point. I don't know. There's a lot of different conversations that can have with it, but I feel like if I watch film, that there's certain things I want to emphasize. And if the players want to kind of watch it on their own time, that's great. But I want to make sure they get certain aspects of what happened down, and then maybe they'll end up seeing something that I didn't see. But I don't know. It's really interesting, all the different philosophies that kind of occur out of that. Because like you said, if I just told them to watch it and assume that they understood everything I wanted them to understand, I don't even know if they'd watch it to begin with. And 2, I highly doubt they would get everything I would want to have them get out of it.
Right. And, Huddle makes it so easy. They could
Absolutely,
literally
it does.
click on their name and look at every shot selection, every turnover. So, I mean, that is one thing that we do go over at the beginning. Like, hey, let's teach you how to use this tool. So then they're like, oh, okay, I didn't know you could do that. So I think that that's important too, because when you force a kid to watch film and you don't show them everything, I have kids in my health class, or, they'll have their iPad and they got Huddle playing, but they're not watching it. That's so they can get their minutes up. That's not that's a fake hustle. So we really spoon feed them. We show them how to use it. If you want to use it for extra additional stuff, great. If not, this is everything that you need for this week, whether it be personally or for the team.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that's a good way to teach it. I think that actually, before we hit our concluding segment, that's a really good point that you brought up, is that Huddle is such a great feature and such a great tool. And I think a lot of coaches know the ins and outs of it, but kind of like with anything of teaching, I think you almost got to teach your players how to use it, even though it sounds like intuitive how you use it. There's actually a lot to it though, and a lot that they can get out of it if it's taught to them, that they can get a lot more out of it, I think, if we teach them about certain things and have them look for certain things on it. So I didn't really think about that, but it makes perfect sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. All righty, Coach. To wrap up, there's a couple concluding questions that I ask every guest. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here with this first one. Thinking back on your coaching career, what is a moment from your coaching career that you think others can learn from? It doesn't have to be related to offensive spacing, but it most certainly can be if you want. But what is that moment that you think others listening might be able to learn from?
Well, I mean, just for me is perseverance, because the state of Indiana basketball, high school basketball specifically, it's big time.
Yeah.
It's a lot of importance. We got big crowds. It's important to schools. It's important to communities. So when I had this dream and these aspirations to be a head coach, I didn't really think about the pitfalls along the way, especially when you have a family and moving and whatnot. But I always thought that I was ready, and I would go to interviews and I would think I would kill it and do everything. And I kept getting told I didn't have experience, or I was second place. I'd go to the first interview and then they'd narrow it down to 3. And I just could never break through. Even I'm at Greenfield. That was the second time I interviewed for Greenfield. It opened up 3 or 4 years later. And then once I got the job, I was the same old coach. But we had limited amount of success. We were 14 and 10 last year, which is the second time that we've had a winning season in the last 17. But nonetheless, now I got people calling me asking if I'd be interested to run their program. So I guess for me, it's just perseverance, and you are a good coach. You just need an opportunity. And when you get that opportunity, just work your tail off and give everything that you have to prove those people wrong. So that's one thing that I kind of would say to any coach that's wanting to break through in this profession, whether it be high school, college, whatever, learn and grow, which I was able to with my experiences, working for free or getting paid, $2,000 for 5 months work, as many of us do, to now, living in the community with my boys and my wife. And now I feel like, it is all happened for a reason, but I would say perseverance.
Yeah, I mean, your story of kind of how you kind of worked your way up through it to get to where you are now, and yeah, Indiana basketball, that is certainly no joke once you get to that level for sure. So that's awesome that it's kind of gotten to that point, and sometimes it's hard to kind of see that when you're in the moment, but then like you said, you kind of like look back on it and think about all the steps that led on the way, and it's like, man, there's a lot of perseverance that got you to where you were.
Yes,
absolutely. All righty, Coach, to wrap up, what I give every guest is what I call my 60-second soapbox. It's your platform to get out your closing thought, your final idea, some sort of message that you want to leave the listeners with. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor, and I'm going to let you take it from here.
All right. I'm just going to talk about our program and our identity, because I do think that's important. I've talked about this previously. I think that you got to have, in order to have a culture, the kids got to know, okay, it's not what you know, it's what they know. But if I'm going to say juice, then you better go ahead and ask the 12th man on the JV team, what is juice? Heck, you need to ask a student what juice is. So we talk about a lot of things, but juice, compete, standard. Juice is energy and effort in everything that you do. We already talked about juiceless or useless. Compete, play hard all the time, refuse to lose. And then the last one, the standard. The standard is the standard. If someone's going to pay $6 to come watch Greenfield Central play on a Friday night, they need to get their money worth. So I think that those are three things that we have identified as these are core pieces of our program, and this is what it takes to be successful. And this is how we are going to get our kids to buy into a competitive culture and do the things that we want. So I guess, for me and our Greenfield Central boys basketball program, juice, compete, standard, we talk about them all the time. The standard is the standard. A kid does something, hey, that's the juice. Another kid, dives on a floor, hey, that's competing, and showing it to them on film and talking about it in practice. That's how you create a culture, and you win a locker room, and you win with culture. And then you can worry about the other things like your spacing, because if you don't have a culture and your kids aren't going to play hard for you, it really will not matter how good of a coach you are or X's and O's or any of that stuff. You got to have a culture. You got to identify that culture, and it's got to be from the jump. So I think that that's something that I would take away, and what I've learned, if I could do it all over again, that would be something that I would make sure that's a forefront of what we do whenever you're running a program or starting a program or figuring out who you are as a coach. Identify your big pieces in your culture first before you can mess with your offense or defense or anything else.
And as a teacher, and you're a teacher, Coach, this suspiciously sounds like a lot like classroom management before you start teaching your content area.
Absolutely.
Like you gotta manage your concept. You gotta manage your classroom first and get that buy-in before you can teach them health or teach them English in my case, right?
No, 100% agree. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Really, really nice way to end that off on. Coach, I appreciate you touching there on your program culture and what you just brought up now. I thought was great, along with the offensive concepts that you like to run, talking some offensive spacing and just talking some hoops in general. Coach, I wish you the best of luck going forward. I look forward to seeing what your team does in the future, and I'm sure regardless of what they're doing, I'm sure they'll be bringing the juice. That's for sure. Coach, I want to thank you so much for spending some time talking hoops with us. Good luck going forward.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.